thank you everyone for being here. This is a very exciting time for OpenZeppelin being the 10th year in the ecosystem, and because of everything that we have been and how we have been contributing to Ethereum and to other blockchains. We're going to have a security panel as it was presented. We have a pretty sick team here. We have first Eric, protocol dev at Uniswap, someone that has been working in the trenches, coding, knowing that most of the money that goes through Uniswap, he coded part of that. We have Patrick Collins, CEO and founder of Cyfrin. He probably doesn't need an introduction. He has been being an amazing educator throughout the years, and probably most of you, if you go smart contracts, you have seen at least one video from him. We also have Eloi Manuel, security lead at Linea. Also probably no introduction of Linea, one of the most successful L2s. And finally, we have Matta. He's a SEAL 911 contributor and also founder of the Red Guild, also an educator. I see that we also have Tinjaf here, one of the founders of the Red Guild. And we're basically here to discuss a little bit about security, how security impacts our industry, a little bit of smart contracts, but also what are the other reasons why we're seeing hacks these days. So I would like to start talking about a little bit about education. What is the importance of education in the ecosystem, given that this is kind of like the first step? And I wanted to ask this one probably to Patrick and to Matta, who are two educators. Do you think that the educational system in crypto or while building smart contracts or even in OPSEC is kind of like broken? What's going on? Why is it that we still see bugs introduced in code?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Why do we still see bugs in this industry? So a few years ago, I was working at Chainlink Labs, and this is before I started Cyfrin, and I was really frustrated because I would see the same types of hacks over and over and over again. Reentrancy was huge back then, which was super frustrating. This was like 2021, and we've known about reentrancies since the DAO hack, 2016. So it's been years we've known about this, and yet we still see repeated mistakes here. There's a whole slew of like rationale how we as an industry can fix these issues, and one of them, is education. You know, we have a lot of better tools now, like Slither, like Darren, static analysis tools, AI tools, but the crux of it was everybody wasn't on the same page. You know, kind of back in the day, how to do audits, how to do security reviews was your alpha. You know, if you told other companies, you know, what you were looking for or what you were doing, like now your edge is kind of gone. And that was really frustrating. So in order for us to all be on the same page, we need to all have the same language of these are the steps you need to take, and everyone needs to know like the bar is here. This is the minimum knowledge you need to have. So, you know, now we have a lot better education today than back then. You know, we have Cyfrin Updraft, just to shill my own horn, what we teach, you know, kind of how to go through the security process. We have some of the best security researchers kind of tell students how they approach the security process. We have tools like Seals Frameworks, which also says, hey, here are the steps that you need to take, so that both security researchers and protocols can have a better understanding of what they need to do. And as time goes on, the bar is just going to keep getting higher and higher as we get more standards, more best practices. But that only works if we as a community are on the same page, saying, yep, these are the things that you need to have, and this is just what you do. And everyone's gone through similar education to be on the same page. So education is really, really important, and hopefully that will help us be more and more secure. Education and tooling, you know, these systemic things are necessary to make it so we all have a shared language, because we can't just kind of keep throwing money at audits and hoping that makes it better. You know, we really just need to have everybody on the same page, education and tooling wise, and that's going to be the rising tide that raises all ships. So
yeah, I also think that as long as security comes totally separated from the education, like I've told Patrick many times, we also did a course with him. You can go and watch it at Cyfrin Updraft. As long as we sell security, well, security is a business, so it's kind of rigged. The system is kind of rigged. Everything comes apart. So it would be ideal if we were able to teach and educate without saying, okay, you need to learn this, how to develop, for example, and then you need to learn how to use security on this. This is a very common problem, comes with a lot of baggage of the Web 2 field, trying to shift security left. This is a very common issue. So as long as we don't teach to do security be designed by default, then it's continue to happen. It's going to continue to happen regardless of how much we improve over time.
I think there were two very interesting things that you guys said. One I also discussed with Eloi yesterday on Wednesday in an interview. And it's about not thinking about audits as the main or the only way of fixing things. We also talk about education. It's kind of like we have to secure the whole development life cycle. And I like maybe Eloi to share his experience at Linea, given that you're a security lead, and Linea is not just like smart contracts, it's also too, and there's so many components, and you probably oversee a little bit of all of it. How do you implement security throughout the development life cycle?
Okay. Well, first, I agree with what have been said. Also, well, something that I would like to add is that we need to develop it's not just theory. We need to develop this kind of security mindset when it comes to in general, in the industry, either it's Web 2 or Web 3. So when we teach even developers how about security, I think we also need to challenge them to think about outside the box. Hacking is always about thinking outside the box, not about the happy path. So I think training and awareness and developing this security mindset is critical. So, and the way that we approach security at Linea is that it's a multi-layer. So security is also about layers, and it's from the very beginning to the whole process until the end. Although if there is an end, because as you said, some people think about audits as the end goal, and we all know it's not. So it's a continuous process, and we definitely need that, the correct security mindset as well as awareness. So things that we're doing while developing is to go to your question, different we implement standardized CI CD pipelines. We also have even though different people from our team know a lot about different components, we designate a point of contact, so an owner of different components, so we know who we need to reach out to when there's any problem or something like that. And obviously security reviews and
Okay, nice. And having all these processes in place is super important to lower the risk, to mitigate the risk as much as you can. But we're already seeing that super well-known companies protocols have been hacked in the last few years, even though they follow all this. And I'd like to have your perspective, Eric, given that you are literally in the trenches and you know that every time you code a line of code, not only you have to think about the business logic, but also the fact that not only one, probably hundreds of hackers will be reading those lines and trying to break them to extract value from smart contracts. So what's the process that you follow when you code a smart contract?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a pretty big question overall, because it feels really weird when you think about just how many more magnitudes of hours are going to be put into reading the code that you write than potentially the time that you put into writing it. So I think over time, I've approached it similar to showing up for work and maybe feeling sick. Just as you would take a sick day when you don't feel 100% going to work, I also think that you shouldn't be writing code, especially not smart contract code, if you kind of can't do the follow through in process and making sure that the code is being well designed and well reviewed. So I think generally for our process at Uniswap is security is definitely at the forefront of what we think about. We start with design, so either a product or a business requirement, walk through research, loop in different parts of the stack and the team. And I think as we go, we really try to isolate, like, okay, like what are the call patterns, what are the entry points, what are the attack vectors, especially with things like Uniswap v4 or other systems that we build, which interface with like many other potential future integrators. I think also having those conversations with them and trying to imagine future use cases that might not exist yet is also hard. But I think it's just part of the, trying to predict what could happen in the future and setting yourself up as best as you can for that.
May I legitimately ask you, like, how do you sleep at night? Like, how do you lay your head on a pillow knowing that you're sitting on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually did not write Uniswap v4. The people who wrote that, I think, might have a harder time answering that question than me. So one interesting thing that I have found is something. So as a protocol developer, sometimes we end up working on multiple different protocols, one after the other. And you'll go from working on something like Uniswap X, which is our like intent-based swapping platform, which is very stateless, right? It's mostly about interactions between users, swappers, and fillers. And then you'll end up working on something like an auction or something that will hold a large amount of funds. And for those two, your testing framework and your approach to security has to be totally different, right? Because the attack vector and the amount of assets at risk at any point in time is also totally different. So I think like when you've got to switch between projects, you need to like readjust how you think and make sure that you're approaching it with the right type of mentality and right sense of caution.
I guess that managing the pressure of a smart contract that doesn't fold any money, but you can see a lot of volume going in and out is a little bit different from actually a smart contract that holds billions of dollars. So yeah, I guess that you sleep a little bit better at night knowing that you didn't code those lines.
We security folks have it easy. We just have to try to break things. We're not kind of accountable for like a hack, But I think it should be a shared responsibility, not just the developer that created the contract. Like all the executives should be held responsible as well.
Yeah.
If I may add on to that, like the software engineers, the smart contract developers tomorrow, in my opinion, must also be security researchers.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. The best code I ever audited when I used to be an auditor was usually written by someone that used to be a security researcher that has that security mindset. And when they're about to code one line of code and they have like these two paths, these two verticals, which are security, business logic, they first code it thinking, is this secure? And they're like, is this following the business logic? Hopefully, yes, but I know it's secure. Cool. These questions go probably for you, Matta, and for you, Patrick. I've been seeing your content and your videos, and I've also been reading the OPSEC book that is here. I think that you brought some, so you can probably ask him or Tincho to give them to you, a guide on how to do OPSEC while traveling. The reality is that most of the biggest hacks that happened in the last 2-3 years haven't been smart contract hacks, haven't been like logic issues or flash loans or rounding issues. Like the huge numbers have been operational security problems. Is operational security broken in crypto?
To be fair, with Web3 and crypto, this is not uncommon in Web2. You see sometimes that a Web3 protocol has been breached, and then when you go to Rect News and you see the leaderboard and you enter like the details, you see that they had a centralized database. So some projects are not completely decentralized. And the thing is that to be honest, in Web2, everything is kind of like a shithole as well. Sorry for the word. But the thing is that threat actors that have like jobs, like the ones that we have, actually the t-shirt is, I'm not going to show it completely, but I can show it afterwards. They have full-time jobs, sometimes in like super hard conditions.
Funding, yeah,
state actors funded to do this every day. even weekends, and it's hard to compete to that. And there's also a lot of motivation in Web3 because there are less layers for them to get the actual money. They just steal a private key and they steal maybe the entire treasury of a protocol that didn't have a good OPSEC. And so the reward is completely higher compared to Web2. And we have spoken, like, security is not a fixed state. Something that comes kind of in favor of the blockchain is that once the logic is secure, it doesn't change that much. But unless the EVM changes, it's really hard that it introduces new security issues. But for example, in Web2, that's completely different. There are a lot of updates. They're exposed all the time. There are a lot of things in between. And the other thing is that, for example, at Seal number 1, I'm the lead of frameworks. That this book is basically a subcategory of the security frameworks, which we explain battle-tested security practices. It's open source, and we are just giving them this for free. But the thing is that when we see what people report in 911, the first case is, well, I'm not going to say the top 5 in order, but it's phishing, a lot of phishing, a lot of interviews that are faked interviews by interviewers or the interviewee. And if we see right now the top 1 DeFi hack that impacted the most, it's Bybit, which it will be in a new category, which is multi-sig hijack. And that was because of a series of things. One thing is that happened there is an ex-employee of Safe, the wallet. For the people that I don't know, it's the most used multi-sig wallet there is, and everybody almost uses it from the web. And the next employee has had access to an npm package as a maintainer to push updates. He was doing an interview. The interviewer told him to run a container, and then he ran it with privileges, which is basically like running its local host, even with more privileges. So they stole it like that. And I think that there's a lot of attack surface for everyone. Like most of the people right now, even me, I don't know how entirely my phone works completely. So I think there's a lot of technological gap between us and the technologies that we use, and we need to be more responsible.
I agree. Patrick?
Logic is hard. Humans are dumb. It's much easier to just fish a human than to break some crazy AMM logic that took a team 20 PhDs to solve. So just send a phishing link. That's way easier.
Yeah, we have something that everybody can go right now, noc.theredguild.org, noc.theredguild.org, and you're going to see 2 lists from Eclipse Foundation and Microsoft that are listing VS Code extensions malware being detected in real time, and there's other that we're monitoring every domain that gets an SSL certificate emitted. And what we do is with some heuristics and strings transformation, we match those domains, and we're catching phishing live. And you can see it right now. It's insane. We are battling against threat actors that create thousands of domains targeted per day. And if I see, for example, if I speak about Coinbase, Kraken, etc., you're gonna see that we're matching around tens of thousands per week, and they have a lot of tricks to bypass them. So we could speak about this for a long time. There are a lot of situations where people get exposed to getting wrecked.
And maybe another topic related to this, is very related to this, is the supply chain and development.
Oh my God,
Guys here, Eloi and Eric. I'd like to know your perspective and also what you do every day when you work, when you're putting in smart contract, when you're supervising many engineers coding smart contracts, to avoid supply chain problems, to avoid an NPM package that has some injected code to reach one of the computers of your developers and basically, extract value.
Yeah, like you've said, like we're seeing like a lot of like phishing attempts and also like supply chain attacks. And with supply chain attacks, we see like fake NPM packages as well as backdoor Docker images and fake CLIs that end up like stealing your private keys. And for this, something that we would recommend is like using signed packages as well as pinning the exact version that you want to use with the hash version of the hash. And also, like we run automated analysis tools like to scan dependencies on our development process. And again, like awareness for the developers. And something that we've like recently added from like our experience recently is that usually all those NPM packages, they are caught in the first or second day of being uploaded on the repos. So what we do is like even like unless it's really, really critical, we do not make the upgrade until like 3 or 4 days have passed in case the update was malicious.
Very interesting. I think our security team at Uniswap also, we have like an internal AppSec team, so they'll help out with like making sure that we developers aren't like too lazy to like pin the packages in GitHub CI or something like that. I think like education too, like going back to the first question, like having Web3 developers also understand the attack surfaces of Web2 and these like more traditional quote unquote attack surfaces. I think also one thing that I'm interested about is with us using more AI tooling in our development process, maybe not for Solidity, maybe not for a new protocol, but maybe for testing, maybe for GitHub CI, maybe for like those docs files or periphery things that you don't really want to write yourself. I wonder what new surfaces come into play there and how we can better, educate people on those.
I think that AI right now is really, really, really risky because all the agents and all the integrations, it's really easy to do context substitution, and you can do it whenever there's read access to something. We recently published and gave a talk about AI on all the things that we could do with the least effort, and it's insane. And speaking about the NPM, like using trusted publishers, that's great. But for example, I think that developers are having a hard time because some environments, let's say the NPM ecosystem is like 2 years late to trusted publishers because PyPy had it implemented like 2 years ago. And I think that the Shalai Khulud NPM worm was a wake-up call because it didn't actually do harm, but it replicated in a way, and that was a strong evidence that developers don't know how to use pinning, like the pinning side. BNPM does it by default, but in NPM you have to do some flags. And that's...
it wasn't necessary back in the day because, or maybe yes, because always following good security practices is something good, but in the open economy, it's kind of like easier to target because you know that one of those packages will potentially at some point interact with code that will be on the blockchain. Or I was just thinking about one of the first ever Ethernote levels that I don't think it exists anymore in the repo on Ethernote. That was about changing the name of a smart contract and change an I for an L because you know that in specific
typo squatting
fonts, yeah, exactly. And I can already think of like OpenZeppelin has an L, it could potentially be an I. And it's an NPM package, and you just might like Google it. Someone might have paid money to put that at like a sponsored repo, and you just copy that, and you don't ever see that it's an L or an I. And suddenly you think that you're installing OpenZeppelin contracts, and you're starting to inherit from those contracts, and suddenly you have vulnerable code everywhere.
Yeah, that's happening a lot.
It's
one of the most popular VS Code extensions by Juan Blanco. It's got an L in its name. And on the cursor uses OpenVSX Marketplace for their extensions. And somebody typo spotted the L for like a 1. A ton of people downloaded it and lost a bunch of money because they downloaded a malicious extension. This actually goes back to the AI conversation that we're having. As of today, you must be better than the AI before you start using it. In one of my presentations yesterday, I gave a perfect example. I said, hey, Claude, how do I deploy my smart contract? What's the process? And it goes, oh, cool. Yeah, no worries. Just export your private key into plain text. And I was like, no, don't do that. don't listen to Claude. But the thing is, if you listen to Claude and you downloaded that extension, you were screwed. If you knew that Claude was giving you nonsense, if you did download that extension, at least you would have been safe from like getting your private key stolen. So there's all these things that you have to be better than the AIs, because the AIs are trained on all the garbage that, what did we just say? Humans are dumb, that dumb humans have written, that are like bad practices. So you have to be better than the AI today to use it.
A fun fact, which I think it means that vendors need to do better. The Juan Blanco extension, OpenBigCX, it's run by Eclipse Foundation. And then they removed the original one for a while. Also hard hats extension. And we were like, no, please don't do this. You're doing it all wrong. So it's I don't know, it's very complicated for devs out there.
Yeah, it is. This also brings to one more topic. We've been talking about a little bit of audits. I want you to guys share with us what's your position on the role of audits in the development lifecycle. One thing that I've been seeing around is that sometimes some developers, since they rely too much on audits, they might start doing some vibe coding with AI because they're like, oh, that's okay. Just going to ship this and the others are going to be able to find everything. So something that should be a tool like AI to be doing things better might be introducing a new attack vector, which is literally the AI coding something that you don't want to. And I feel that there's a lot of pressure also, or like a super huge focus on audits these days. And if you see the balancer hack that happened a few weeks ago, and you go on Twitter, you'll see that there were so many comments around like, oh, this was audited by this and that. And it's just like crazy how some developers or some teams rely too much on audits. What's your view on audits, and what do you think is the limit of an audit, of what an audit can accomplish?
Maybe I can start. Yeah, I mean, I think if you have ever sat down and tried to audit code for fun or for a competition or for anything else in general, I think you would quickly see that it's not like a foolproof stamp wax seal of approval. You can ship it off and you can be happy. Unless you trust yourself 100,000%, it's never going to be like that. And especially not when there are other factors at play, like timelines or, people who have never seen the code before, people who are just getting context for the first time, like trying to bridge that gap of understanding, and then also expecting the code to come out sparkling clean is extremely, extremely non-realistic. So I think like a lot of the stuff on Twitter is frustrating because,
Totally.
they're like finger pointing and grave dancing. And I just think that, like it was out there for 5 years for the balancer one. And it's really, I feel like not, it's not like how they're portraying it. But in general, for us at Uniswap, we really view audits as, we do some audits a bit earlier in the dev cycle, so we view them as more collaborative. And so for us, sometimes it's really helpful to get an external pair of eyes on a project. And we definitely make sure that even post-audit, we're still working with the firms, we're still working within ourselves, making sure that the code is as tight and good as possible.
Yeah, I also think that there's a hard truth, and that is that audits are not a one-shot solution. And the other thing is that audits are a contractual relationship between the team that is auditing and the protocol, and there are lots of interest there. Sometimes they are more, the main reason are done to satisfy stakeholders and investors, and to also provide a sense of full security rather than actually doing the work. And usually how companies work, I'm going to generalize, they agree on a commit, on a fixed state of the protocol, and it gets audited in a certain period of time. And maybe there's a recheck, but if you found something outside the scope or maybe afterwards, it's just kiss and goodbye. Like there's no accountability. And if you go to the Rect News leaderboard, you're going to see that the top 25, half of them are out of scope. And that's because you found something, they fixed it, then you found something again, and the contract finished. but they said, okay, but we need to push this new update, and they pushed it, and then
And they vibe coded it because they didn't have time and they needed to do the upgrade ASAP.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're coming to an end now. We can continue. That's amazing. Yeah, great. So we already talked about the importance of audits. We talked a little bit about the development life cycle. We talked about OPSEC. Anything else, guys, that you think people should be aware of, developers should be aware of, security providers, security researchers should be aware of and think of when they get into crypto and start working, building smart contracts? Anything that you want to share extra?
I mean, there's like 100 things I could just rattle off, but we don't have time for that.
Give me a pen.
Well, let me add on to the audits thing that we were just talking about, because I think this is kind of interesting as well. So before I founded Cyfrin, one of the things that I was frustrated about was the incentives of the audits always seemed very off to me. We're up here saying, hey, it's the protocol's job. At the end of the day, they're the ones responsible for staying secure. And yet the audit firm gets paid for the contractual agreement. So they're very incentivized. The auditors are incentivized to just be like, yeah, let's outsource all of our security to us. And so you'll see a lot of marketing around like, oh, just let us take care of it. Here, just all you got to do is use this tool. It's a silver bullet, and just pay us to use the tool and we'll make you safe. But just kind of doubling down on that is not the case. You, as the protocol dev, are ultimately responsible for your protocol. And that means that you need to have this security mindset. Like, you have to get into security. You have to learn security, because there will always be kind of this pressure of the auditor to say like, oh, like take a load off. Like we'll do it. Just pay us more money, whatever. But exactly as we're saying here, at the end of the day, if the protocol gets hacked, they're looking at you. They're looking at the protocol devs. Yes, some people are going to be like, oh, should we blame the auditors? Blah, blah. That's a whole other conversation. But at the end of the day, you are responsible. So take your security education seriously. Really understand what you're doing. Because, like every single line of code that you write is going to be scrutinized. Solidity code bases and smart contract code bases are smaller by convention, smaller than Web 2, like a JavaScript website. But that is because every single line is going to be scrutinized to try to attack it. So there's a lot more pressure, even though the code base is smaller. Like most of the work in like writing smart contracts is not like writing the contracts. It's writing the tests, the buzz. If you're doing form verification, the form verification, it's scrutinizing it. It's going over, doing integration tests. It's all the other stuff, because the actual code is very, very small. Most of the skill in smart contract development is the security focus.
And it's actually quite complex, because it's as you said, and as I said to Eric, you have to code one line, and then after coding multiple lines, you have a function. So you have to start thinking that not only as a set of lines, but also as a function. Then you have a set of functions that they might interact between each other, or an actor might be able to interact with all these, and they all live in a smart contract that probably talks to other smart contracts. And those smart contracts might be from your system or might be from another system that you actually didn't audit, and you're kind of like assuming it's working okay because it never got hacked. But then we see that companies that haven't been hacked in the past are getting hacked now. So it's kind of like it's different. It's difficult to think how to come up, and this goes beyond audits. How can we reach that point in which, like you already said, security researchers should be developers, should be the developers building this. The developers building these things should be security researchers. And we talked about the development lifecycle and not getting wrecked with OPSEC and all these things. But all that together might not be enough yet.
I think that as an ecosystem, we need to do a better job at creating products. Of course, that they are secure by default, but I think there's a lot of shaming to users when they, get tricked into delivering something. It's too sensitive, but it's too close to the reach. So I think that's a usability problem. We need to work a lot on the user experience to avoid these things by design.
If I may add one more thing, I think yes, it is scary to think about the realm of possibilities when writing smart contract code, but I think I'm also very excited for the next, hundreds or thousands of smart contract developers that will come. And I think with AI, with more advanced tooling like automated fuzzing, Slither, the old static analysis tools, like I think static analysis will be a bit more solved in the future than it is today. And the main focus will be on process. And I think we are already making good steps toward better processes. So that's what I'm optimistic about.
Okay. Well, what I want to say about what you were describing, I think part of the beauty of DeFi is like what we call the money Legos, but it comes with some risk. So I think, we need to find the perfect balance between security and discovering like what we can do with DeFi, with like all the new like blockchain ecosystem. And then going back to audits, something that I wanted to say is that my previous background was in Web 2. So something that I found really interesting when I switched from Web 2 security to Web 3 is that reports are public. So like usually in Web 2, you don't show everyone your vulnerabilities that have been found. And like Patrick said, everyone is scrutinizing your contract. So this is like the game changer. So it's like really different Web 2 from Web 3 in that regard. And that's pretty much it.
It's like having a sign here saying "hack me."
Yeah, like you're a target. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to share to this amazing audience, or to whoever is gonna see this on YouTube in the future?
I do. Stop negating human nature. Humans are prone to committing mistakes. Instead of applying mechanisms of control to your products, just prepare for recovery, prepare for resiliency. There's an entire field called security chaos engineering, which actually tests protocols for disaster and how they recover. I think that's the most important part. Stop negating human nature.
One more thing to add on to what Matta said before about making tooling. Every single time we see an attack, and we did this, I think, pretty well as an industry with Bybit, ask the question, what could I have done to have prevented this? Take the ownership of the hack on yourself. With the Bybit hack, it was a great example. We said, what could I have done to prevent this? It's very easy to be like, oh, well, nothing. But a ton of people said, okay, we're going to create tools that make it easier to verify hashes. We're going to create websites that allow you to send safe transactions without having to rely on the safe UI. We're going to make signing on our hardware wallet easier with the coding call data. We as an industry said, what can I do better myself? Even though the hack wasn't part of my system, keep asking that question, what can I do better to make the system better?
Yeah, to add something here, recently with Balancer, we had something similar. Like when the Balancer hack happened, at Linea, we started doing our own research, and when we realized like Balancer was not deployed on Linea, there was just one small fork that had like minimum liquidity, but still what we did it like instead of saying it's not related to us, what we did is like we went through our like incident response playbooks and started thinking how we can improve them in case this was us.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up, I think you mentioned SEAL and the resilience training. I mean, at Uniswap, like we have done a few of them, and I think it's been super, super helpful. Just like, I mean, I think like if you come from a security background too, like it's a bit exciting sometimes to like have to, like, okay, like for example, like not in a real situation, like for like some like hypothetical, like working through the problem, trying to figure out how to resolve an incident. But at the end of the day, like these things can happen, and it's very important for us that we're also prepared.
Okay, that's it, folks. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks.